You're at a funeral, silence surrounding the room. People are crying, and then you feel it. That laugh rising in your chest. You try to suppress it, but now you're shaking, not from grief, from the effort of not laughing. And you feel like the worst person in the room. Or maybe it's different for you. Maybe you're deeply embarrassed about something you said. The room goes silent, and the only way your body knows how to respond is with laughter, which makes everything worse. You're not cruel, you're not indifferent. Something else is happening, something your conscious mind isn't controlling. And the shame you feel afterwards, that's not the problem either. Your nervous system is. I'm Em. This is Dose of Confidence. And today we're talking about why we laugh at inappropriate times. Let's break this down. Nervous laughter is not a character flaw. It's your survival system doing exactly what it's supposed to do, protecting you from emotional collapse. The shame you feel about it is the only real problem. First, let's separate what it is from what it isn't. Nervous laughter is not amusement, it's not enjoyment, it's not humor emerging because something is funny. It feels involuntary because it is. Your conscious mind doesn't authorize it, your nervous system does. There's a difference between laughing because you find something amusing and laughing because your body is in a state of stress and needs release valve. You know these situations when you are at a funeral and the silence feels unbearable, or having a job interview where you're panicking. Being deeply embarrassed, you're trapped, you said something offensive, you failed in front of people who matter, a serious conversation about something painful, and your body betrays you with a laughter you don't control. What makes it worse is that you usually know it's happening. You can feel it coming, you try to stop it, and the effort of suppressing it sometimes makes it louder. Then comes the guilt spiral. People would judge me for it. They would think I'm heartless. They would think I don't care. Sometimes you think you don't care either, which creates another layer of shame. But here is what's actually true. Your laughter is not evidence of any of those things. It's evidence of a nervous system in crisis. And once you understand that, the shame starts to fade. When nervous laughter shows up, there are usually some things happening in the background. The first is a feeling of contradiction, when a situation holds two things that can't exist comfortably together: grief and formality, fear and politeness, embarrassment and expectation of confidence. Your mind is good at treating situations clearly, but it struggles with situations that are emotionally contradictory, where the weight of what's happening doesn't match the shape of the moment around it. When someone gives a eulogy and mentions a strangely specific detail, the deceased's favorite brand of instant coffee, the exact words of an argument from 20 years ago, something in the room changes. The grief is still there, but something absurd has entered the space and it feels like it doesn't belong here. Your mind registers a mismatch, and laughter can be the sound of that internal collision. It's not making light of the situation. It's the sound of two things that don't belong together happening at the same moment. Laughter can also be a social defense mechanism. In most social situations, you know what the response is. There is a learned sequence. This happens, so you do this. Embarrassment gets an apology. Grief gets stillness and softness. Tension gets patience. But when the situation is overwhelming enough, when the embarrassment is too sharp, the grief is too large, the pressure is too much, the logic disappears. And laughter is what the nervous system reaches for when nothing else comes up fast enough. It's the most socially familiar sound a person can make. It usually connects people, releases tension, softens rooms. Your nervous system isn't trying to be inappropriate. It's reaching for the one response that has historically worked, but it's getting the timing completely wrong. Laughter becomes a kind of default, a social placeholder for when the real response hasn't arrived yet. Another reason for laughing at inappropriate times can be an anxiety and stress relief. When the body is under emotional pressure, it's carrying actual tension, and laughter moves that. It opens the chest, it pushes air out, it briefly, physically releases the tension. So at a funeral, in a hard conversation, in the middle of a moment you don't know how to hold, Your body isn't choosing laughter because it's appropriate. It's choosing it because the pressure needed somewhere to go. That's not insensitivity. It's a nervous system doing something, thinking it would help release the stress. And here's the part that doesn't get said clearly enough. You didn't decide to laugh. You weren't making a statement. There was no moment where you thought this is the wrong response and chose it anyways. Nervous laughter is triggered by the same system that makes your hands shake before you have to say something difficult. The same one that makes your voice vibrate when you're trying to sound calm. The one that acts before you have chance to weigh in. When emotional intensity crosses a certain threshold, the response it produces is not rational, it's fast, and it doesn't ask permission. For some people, that looks like tears that arrive before they understand why. For some, it looks like complete stillness, going blank, going quiet, going somewhere else entirely. For some, it's words, too many, too fast, filling the silence with anything. And for some people, in some situations, it looks like laughter. The reason this matters so much, the reason it's worth slowing down on, is the guilt. Most people who laugh at the wrong time don't just feel awkward about it, they carry it. They replay the expression on someone's face. They ask themselves randomly in the middle of other things, what kind of person does that? And they hold that laugh as evidence. Evidence of indifference, of immaturity, of something broken in them that other people manage to contain. But the involuntary nature of it reframes the entire thing. You weren't laughing at the grief. You weren't laughing at the person. Your nervous system was managing an emotional load that exceeded what it could hold without making some kind of sound. That's not a character flaw. That's just how some nervous systems respond when they are full. The guilt makes sense because you were present in the moment and you cared about it. That's actually what the guilt is telling you. But the laugh itself was never a verdict on who you are. Nervous laughter doesn't land the same way everywhere. In some spaces, the rules around emotional expression are very clear. Grief has a specific shape. Respect has a specific behavior. Composure is not valued, it's expected. And when your body breaks that pattern, even involuntarily, even against everything you were trying to do, you're not just dealing with your own embarrassment. You're standing inside the weight of an entire room's expectations. And in spaces where emotional control reads as maturity, a laugh at the wrong moment can feel like more than a social mistake. It can feel like a revelation, like something true about you has been uncovered without your consent. And that changes the internal experience. It's no longer just, I behaved awkwardly at a difficult moment. It becomes, I don't belong here the way I'm supposed to, or I must be feeling something different from everyone else in the room, which is almost never true. Most people in the room have felt the wrong impulse arrive at the wrong time. They were practiced at suppressing it, or lucky with the timing, or simply not tested in that particular way on that particular day. The cultural shame around nervous laughter converts something involuntary into a moral category. It turns a nervous system response into evidence of character. And the weight, the feeling that you failed, not just in the moment, but as a person, is a weight that you don't actually have to carry. You can't always predict when these nervous laughs happen, but you can understand what to do after the moment they happen. The first thing is to not layer more onto it. Nervous laughter is an already tense moment, but excessive apologizing, explaining, spiraling visibly in front of everyone, that often extends the disruption longer than the laugh itself did. A simple, sincere acknowledgement is enough, not a performance of remorse, not an explanation. Something like, I'm sorry, that wasn't the right response. And then you return your attention to the person or the moment. You don't need to earn your way back with an elaborate apology. You just need to show that you're present. The second thing is about learning to catch the buildup. Nervous laughter has a physical warning before it arrives. There is usually a pressure first, in the chest, in the throat, a tightness that precedes the impulse. A suppressed smile you can feel coming before anyone else can see it. If you can learn to notice that feeling early, not to eliminate it, but just to recognize it, You have a slightly wider window before the laugh becomes the only exit. A slow exhale through the nose, a deliberate pause, shifting your eyes slightly, then back. These aren't guarantees, but they offer your nervous system a different release before laughter becomes the one it defaults to. The third thing is the one that actually changes how you hold all of this. You don't need to fix your nervous system. You just need to understand it. Knowing why it happens changes what it means. It stops being evidence of who you are in a moment of pressure. It becomes information about what you were carrying and how much of it your system was trying to manage without you noticing. If you have laughed at the wrong time and felt that particular sinking embarrassment afterwards, there is something worth sitting with. The fact that you felt embarrassed at all means you understand the weight of the moment. You weren't attached or indifferent. You were, if anything, too inside it, so present in the pressure of it that your body didn't know what to do with everything it was holding. The laugh didn't come from not caring. It came from caring in a situation that exceeded what you could hold cleanly. That's a very different thing from cruelty. That's a very different thing from disrespect. You're not someone who laughs at pain. You're someone whose nervous system doesn't always process pressure quietly. And there is a real difference between those two things, even if no one else could see it. The embarrassment makes sense. The guilt makes sense. But the story you constructed afterwards, the one where the laugh revealed something terrible about you, that part is worth questioning. Because you were there. You felt the full weight of the moment. Your body just found the most inconvenient possible way to say it. If this video helped you, feel free to subscribe and share it with someone who might need it. And let me know what other topics you'd like to hear about next. You can find more related videos in the description if you want to continue exploring. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.